It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLabPGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLabPGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, fitlabpgh@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at fitlabpgh. Already a fan of FitLabPGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. FitLabPGH and our sister podcast, Moving to Live, firmly believe that movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. That's why, in addition to the podcast, like the upcoming interview that we do, we also do 3 times a week movement tip lifestyle hack videos available on most social media channels. We also do a Thursday FitLab Pittsburgh Features, a written feature of a 2-legged or 4-legged mover in the Pittsburgh area. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us some reviews at Apple Podcasts or whatever your podcast app that you listen to. Drop us an email or a message on social media telling us what you like or potential ideas for interviews. I think you'll enjoy the interview today. We talked to a sailor, a CrossFitter, and somebody who really epitomizes movement as a lifestyle. FitLabPGH back with another podcast interview. This time we did not have to cross a bridge or go through a tunnel, and I have not told today's guest this yet, but it has to be a good interview because we're holding it in a coffee shop, and we have yet to hold a podcast interview in a coffee shop and not have a good interview, so no pressure, but pressure. Today's guest came on a recommendation from Chris Mayhew, who is a cycling coach that I think by the time this airs, his interview will have already aired. We have somebody who is a 2-time Olympian, co-owns a CrossFit gym with her husband, and is currently training to attempt to qualify for the 2020 Olympics. So we are with Anna Tobias. Anna, thank you for taking time to talk to FitLabPGH.
Thank you for having me.
I guess the first question everybody's going to want to know, since I said you were an Olympian, is, or I guess not were, like once an Olympian, always an Olympian. What were you an Olympian in, or what are you an Olympian in?
I went to the Olympics for sailing. 2008, I went to the Olympics in the laser radial, which is the women's one-person dinghy. And then in 2012, I went in the women's match racing division, which is a 3-person boat.
And for people who don't know anything about sailing in the Olympics, we are in Pittsburgh. They have 1-person boats. They have 3-person boats, obviously. Do they have 2-person boats also, or any other size boats?
They do. There are 10 disciplines total in sailing. 1 is mixed, and then the others are divided, just about divided, except there's 1 more guys division than girls. They go from single-handed boats, so 1-person boats. There's 4 2-person boats, and then 5 2-person boats. Actually, they're all 1 or 2. This quad. In the past, there's been up to 3 people.
And anybody who follows the Olympics knows they constantly change, add sports, and switch things around. I'm curious with sailing. I know people hear what you just said, and I know every 4 or 5 years you get the America's Cup where there are these big, huge teams. Is this something that somebody who's a sailor, obviously not at the Olympic level, but if they're quite good, where they can fairly easily switch from one type of boat to another, or do sailors typically specialize in a specific type of sailing?
Going into the Olympics, you spend a lot of time focusing in on your discipline. But a good sailor can switch between boats and be fairly competitive on those in those classes. But to get to the top of each class, you need to spend a little bit of time focusing on understanding basically the physics behind that particular boat.
And with sailing, I know if you're a bike racer, you often have your own bikes or multiple bikes. With sailing, do you have your own boat, or do you have sponsors, or do you rent boats, lease boats?
Yes, all of that. You do own your own boat. Depending on how many boats you own, where you're going, and the timeline of competitions, you might we call it charter a boat, so like renting a boat from somebody, either a friend or a company overseas. So our past season in Europe, we basically did a long-term charter from a company and had a good boat through the season. We also have been to a couple events where we've had to charter from friends, and they've been older, not great boats. So, you go with what you've got. If you have sponsors, you have more money, they'll help you out with boats and good quality equipment.
And I know in things like kayaking and in cycling, it's very easy to tell what's a fast kayak or a fast cycle. Like in kayaking, the weight, the length of it, how wide it is. Just for people who are interested, what are one or two things that the types of boats that you use that makes it a good boat or a fast boat versus a slow boat or one that's like, Jesus, I know I'm not going to do well with this boat?
Our boats will come, the boats that I sail now. So I sail a two-person boat now. And the boats that we sail now are one design, meaning they come from the factory, they're stock. You don't really change anything on it. You might change the lines, but the mast, the sails, the boat itself is all the same across the fleet. The things that make faster or slower, yes, the weight of the boat makes a big difference. So we have a weight limit as to how light it can be, but you're always looking to try and keep it at that weight. Like once it starts getting over, then they start getting heavier and heavier. And obviously that's slower. And then the integrity of the hull. So over time, the fiberglass just gets a little bit softer, so it doesn't hold its like sturdiness as you pound through the waves. It gives a little bit, which kind of doesn't make the boat go as fast.
And I know you asked if there were going to be any curveball questions. This is an unintentional curveball question, and feel free to say, I have no idea. Somebody has a boat, like you have a boat and you use it. How long before that hull gets soft? How long before it fatigues and you're like, okay, time to get a new boat or find a new boat?
It depends on how serious you're taking your sport. Oh, not serious, but I guess at what level you're training. So if we're training, 200 plus days a year, we're probably going for a new boat every year and a half.
I guess the question we want to ask in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, are you from here? I don't think so from the accent. And how did you decide here, and what do you do for sailing when you're here? Are there places around here where you can go to practice?
There is sailing around Pittsburgh. I'm not from here. I grew up in England, lived there till I was 12, and then moved to Toledo, Ohio. After I graduated high school there, I moved to, I went to university at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and then went and moved and lived in Miami for 9 or 10 years, so Lauderdale, Miami area. After that, and I sailed pretty much. I dabbled in sailing when I lived in England. I did it because my parents did it, and I had to learn how to do it. Didn't really enjoy it. Got into it more when I moved to America, so in my teens I enjoyed it more. Wasn't very good. Went to school, sailed at school. Had an awesome team and coach that I learned under and got a lot better. Dove right into Olympic sailing after college sailing. And then, so the girls that I've sailed when I have teamed up with when I first moved to Florida, I sailed by myself, so everything was easy. After that, the girls I sailed with in the 2012 Olympics, one lived in Long Island, one lived in San Francisco. So we just fly somewhere and meet and sail. And same now, the girl I sail with is from San Diego. So we just fly so right now we're currently training in New England. So we just fly there and train there.
And for people who don't know, I know I got my master's degree at Old Dominion. It is a sailing powerhouse as far as collegiate sailing goes.
It has its ups and downs, as most college sailing teams do, but they do have a phenomenal coach and, a very good sailing team.
And I'm always, if anybody has listened to our past podcast, when we interviewed the youth rowing coach of Three Rivers Rowing, I got stuck on his term of the perfect stroke. With sports that I'll probably never do, and I would put sailing in it, what are some things that make somebody a good sailor? So obviously as a multiple competitor in a multiple Olympic Games, trying for a third Olympic Games, you have to be pretty good, especially since you medaled. What are some things as far as skills that make you a good sailor, or for somebody who's saying, I might want to do this, do I have these skills or do I have the physical abilities to become a good sailor?
So the cool thing about sailing is that there's so many different disciplines that you can do, so many different types of boats. So you can do big boat sailing, you can go, and then you can go all the way down to dinghy boat sailing, which is what I do. So as far as physicalness, it depends on kind of what you're sailing, depends on your physical demands on the boat. But all sailors require some muscle. You have to pull sails, pull them up. The windier it is, the harder the work is. In dinghy sailing particularly, you have to be agile and strong, so that's a big focus in dinghy sailing. But then it comes down to understanding how the boat works, understanding the feel of what feels fast and what doesn't feel fast, kind of understanding the flow of water and wind across the sails and the boards that make you go forward and, I guess, upwind, so kind of almost into the wind. And then we have this skill that you have to be able to pretty much see the wind, so it's something that you learn over time, and for me, like, I can look at a lake of water and see the wind, but somebody that doesn't know that looks at a pond and sees a pond, and I see wind and how the wind's shifting and stuff like that. So over time you get more and more comfortable at seeing wind move across water and understanding if it's going to keep coming straight at you or if it's going to come and hit you at a slightly different angle, and then being able to position your boat relative to that wind to take full advantage of how the wind's shifting.
And I know every few years when I'm switching through the channels and I see America's Cup, which are the big boats with, I guess, as many as 15 or 20 sailors, you often hear the announcers talk about how one boat is able to block the wind from another boat and gain an advantage. Is that something that's possible in the smaller boats that you sail also?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have this reverse drafting thing. We don't want to draft in sailing. It's bad to be behind. The wind that comes off a sail is very disturbed. So think of a wind coming off an airplane wing. It's very disturbed behind it. It's the same idea in sailing. You want wind to be as smooth as possible instead of all disturbed. So yes, it's definitely something you can do in all sailboats. Obviously, the bigger the boat, the bigger the sail, the more disturbed the wind's going to be.
We're talking with Brad Tobias, a two-time Olympian trying for her third Olympic Games, who also co-owns a CrossFit gym here in the Bridgeville, Pennsylvania area. Large bodies of water to have to sail, reasonably large bodies of water. How did you end up in Pittsburgh, or what was the decision to say, I'm a sailor, I'm still trying to compete, I'm at a high level, but I'm going to move to Pittsburgh where, although, as you said, there is sailing, I'm assuming most people are not world-class in Pittsburgh who are sailors. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm sure there's some good sailors around here. I've met a couple good sailors. But yeah, no, you wouldn't consider Pittsburgh the sailing mecca of the world. Why did we move up here? We moved up here to open a gym. After the 2012 Olympics, let's back up a couple. At the end of 2011, I got into CrossFit. I found it, and I was looking for a new fitness routine to do my physical side of training for sailing. Found CrossFit, met Brad, my now husband. He was my coach at the time. That grew like as a coaching relationship. He coached me through my physical training through the Olympics. After that, we set a goal of trying to qualify for the CrossFit Games. And then after the 2012 Olympics, we were the gold medal favorites going into it, and it didn't work out, and we ended up fifth, and it was heartbreaking, and I took it really hard. And kind of needed just a little break from sailing. And we had the opportunity to move to Pittsburgh to open a gym with another couple. So pounced on that, took it, moved up here. My parents coincidentally happened to live here, so it was cool to move back home because I hadn't lived near them since I graduated high school. And then did that for a couple years, and then we split away and opened our own gym here in Bridgeville.
And I know people who don't sail don't know this. I have a client whose husband sails when they live at Chautauqua, obviously not at the same level you do. How long can the competitive career of an Olympic sailor be? So you're, with luck and skill, you'll qualify for your third Olympic Games over the course of 12 years. How old are some of the oldest sailors who are able to not only qualify for the Olympics, because I think what some people tend to forget when they say, oh, she didn't medal, she only finished fifth. You still made the Olympic Games, which is well and above what most people will ever do in their competitive events.
Yeah, sailing is the cool thing about sailing is that there is the opportunity to keep sailing and sailing. It's not like gymnastics where you age out basically because physicalness. you can sail. There's when in 2008 when I went to the Olympics, we had somebody in the 50s, maybe close to 60 on the team. I know last year in Rio, there's a phenomenal. He's a legend, but pretty sure he's in his 50s. Who won the gold medal. So that's the cool thing about the sport is that like it's one of those sports that the more you do it, the more knowledge you have, the more experience you get, and the better and better you get, and you just continue to get better over time. At some point, depending on the type of boat, you're going to have some physical limitations, I'm sure, but if you pick the right boat and you're really good, you're going to do fine.
I'm curious how much of the skill as a sailor is physical versus mental. You talked about reading the wind and the strategy, so you got clean air. So you're now sailing. Are there ever times when you're sailing where it's like, okay, I need to work on my physical aspect, or is it more along the lines now it's improving the tactical skills and the strategy?
Yeah, both. So there's definitely times when I'm racing and I'm like, wow, I feel really out of shape. I need to get better. So the thing about sailing is that it's not like, let's say, cycling or running, and you're like, right now it's time to put the hammer down, and you start pushing it and you go faster. You don't actually do that in sailing. Like, you can want to go as fast as possible, but most likely everybody around you is going about the same speed. So it's not like you can just pass somebody like that. So a lot of the game is on the mental side of it too. I like to think of it as like playing chess against multiple people out on the race course. So you're trying to position yourself relative to them based on what you're seeing through this invisible wind that everybody's supposed to understand what's going on, and position your boat better than everybody else to take advantage of that situation.
I know you've mentioned that 2008 you qualified, or you went to the Olympics and won a medal. You sailed in college. You sailed a little bit when you were a kid. Do you remember at some point in time where all of a sudden there was like a step up with the technical aspect, the strategy, being able to read the wind, like maybe a certain event or certain year? It's like, oh, wow, now I kind of get it. I'm not perfect at it, but I really see this is what people were talking about.
I don't remember there being like a specific moment, but I used to joke when I was a kid, because I didn't think I really understood what was going on, that when I got tired, I would just change tacks and go the other way until I got tired and change tacks. And I'm pretty sure at the time I somewhat understood what was going on, but like I didn't. I would definitely say in college I got a lot of experience. You sail 6 days a week, for 4 years in a row, like you get a lot of time on the water.
And is there coaching in college sailing where the coach talks about technique and strategy? And
yeah, definitely. We do a lot of understanding of like plays and the wind and strategy and technique. Cool thing in college, again, is all the boats are exactly the same. So it's basically, it comes down to the mental side and the positioning side of the boats to get yourself the best result possible. It's not who's got better equipment.
And I know in some sports that there is a strategy or teamwork. If you're competing for the U.S. or you're competing in something that's non-Olympic and there's another boat that you're friends with, do you often, and I'll be using the wrong terminology, gang up on other boats or work as teamwork, like you win this event, I'll win the next event? Or
no, that's not allowed. You can have teammates out there, but you're not allowed to, basically, we call it team race. You're not allowed to team race an opponent. It's not part of like the fair sailing rules.
So you mentioned that you found CrossFit to help with your physical aspect of training for it, and it also gave you a mental break after the 2012 Olympics. Prior to finding CrossFit, I know many people who listen to this, because we are a podcast about movement, they're like, well, what does it take physically to sail? What did you do training-wise to prepare your body to sail? What sorts of things did you do?
So everybody did a lot of different things. I, at the time, did a lot physically to train. I had a gym program, and it was like 2 hours in the gym, and it wasn't fun. And it got really boring. But it was like, leg extensions, like curls, a couple pull-ups here and there, some benching stuff. And now understanding more about fitness, like that program didn't really actually make that much sense for what I was trying to accomplish. At the time, too, I ran in high school, so I wanted to keep my running going. So I trained for half marathons and eventually started training with a bike, too, and triathlons. So that was kind of more, I would say, my physical training than much else.
Favorite question, and I think this will be interesting, that I always ask FitLab Pittsburgh guests. It's actually a two-part. most interesting or exciting or cool physical activity that you've done in the past? It's okay to say you won an Olympic medal. So you're sitting there, you're talking with people, or somebody asks you this question. What's your response?
I'd say I have two. One was winning the Olympic gold medal. That tops, that's everybody, every athlete's dream to be on the top of the podium there. So that for sure. Another really cool one was winning the 2018 and then repeating the 2019 Masters CrossFit Games Championship.
And for people who don't know what Masters is, what does that mean?
Old. No.
Old.
So the Masters category in CrossFit starts at age 35, and they're broken into 5-year increments. So my age group was 35 to 39.
And the reason I ask that is I know in Masters swimming, it starts basically post-collegiate. So somebody could be swimming Masters swimming and they're 25 years old and still probably capable of faster times than they were when they were 18. My second favorite question to always ask FitLab Pittsburgh guests is, any bucket list movement activities? Like, I haven't done this yet, so you can't say winning another Olympic medal. Haven't done this yet. This is something I want to do physically wise at some point in the future.
I used to think I wanted to run a marathon, but I'm pretty sure I don't want to do that anymore. I think I might like trying to hike the Appalachian Trail or something like that. I think that would be really cool. Or hike some sort of long trail. I think that would be really fun to do. But no, I love what I do. I get to do physical stuff every day. And so I just enjoy that.
We've been talking with Anna Tobias. She is a CrossFit gym owner. She is a sailor, which is unusual in Pittsburgh. And watch for her with fingers crossed for the 2020 Olympics to win her second gold medal. Anna, thanks for taking time out of a busy day to talk with FitLab Pittsburgh. And I can say that another successful coffee shop interview.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLabPGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLabPGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.